Kathleen Jasper here, and today we are going through the Praxis PLT 5621, 5622, 5623, 5624, and 5625. So I'm just joining on the webinar now. It is 10 a.m. on Saturday, February 17th, 2024. And again, my name is Kathleen Jasper, and I am here to do the Praxis PLT free webinar to help you prepare for this exam. Now, I am live in the webinar now, and people are starting to come in. So let me know in the chat that you can hear me okay and see me. And then if you're on social media, you might be watching me on Facebook, which I can see I am live on Facebook. Let me just check YouTube really quickly. And yes, I am live on YouTube as well. So if you are on social media and you want the free resources that go with this free webinar today, you can click the link in the description. There's one that says get the resources for this webinar. You fill out the form. It takes you to a thank you page. You can download the free study guide and you'll get the replay link and all the resources I talk about today. All right. So again, we are doing the Praxis PLT. That is the focus of this particular webinar. Many, many teachers have to take the Praxis PLT. It is an exam that governs the profession of teaching. So it's going to cover everything from lesson planning, classroom management, major legislation in education, all of that. So it's a big test, but it's a really good test to use some of my work backwards strategies with. And I'm going to show you that today. Now, with this webinar, many of you signed up for, and I can see you coming in. Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. Let me know in the chat where you're from, because I know we have teachers from all over the country taking this exam. So I'm so glad you're here. But, when you signed up for this webinar, you received a free study guide, which we're going to use today, and you will get the replay link once this webinar is over. So if you want to watch this webinar again, or if you're someone who can't stay for the whole webinar or whatever, you can watch it later. No big deal. All of our webinars are recorded. And so you can watch them again and again and again. So don't worry about that. So we've got people here from North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, New Jersey, Arkansas, Ohio, Indiana, South Carolina, Virginia, Arkansas, Maryland. Awesome. So great to see you guys. New Mexico, Nevada. Awesome. Well, I'm in Florida, and it is hot today in Florida. It's about 80 degrees already, and it's only 10 o'clock. I don't mean to rub it in for those of you who are in New Jersey right now getting hammered with snow and all of that, but it is hot today in Florida. But I'm so glad to see all of these different people here. We've got somebody from Florida as well. I'm so happy. Oh, somebody from Vietnam. Welcome, welcome. Awesome. All right. So again, my name's Kathleen Jasper, and for the last 10 years, I've been helping people pass their certification exams. So if you're new here and you've never met me before, I have a YouTube channel and I have study guides and all of that will help you with these particular exams. Now, I have lots of study guides on Amazon, on my website. I'm going to show you where to get those today. But we also have a lot of free resources, and that's what you're using today on this free webinar. We do webinars for all of the major exams that we offer because I find that people need a little extra support and they don't really know where to start when they talk about studying for these exams. It's a little bit vague in how you should approach these. And I've been studying these exams for a really long time. And so I try to impart that knowledge on the people who take the time to watch my videos, buy my resources, engage with my content, all of that. And I'm so grateful for all of you for doing that. Also, I was trained when I was a teacher. I actually went downtown into curriculum and we were building common assessments for the district. It was a great job. If you ever have a chance to work in curriculum, I highly recommend it. If you're one of those people who likes to write exams and write curriculum and lesson plan and all that stuff, working downtown is a really fun job. But I worked down in the curriculum office downtown for the whole district, and a major testing company came in and trained us on how to write blueprints, test specifications, items, answer choices, how to really build these tests in a way that the state builds their exams. So I know a lot about the testing industry, and I try to use that knowledge as well to show you how to be strategic and think like a test maker. I use that term a lot, and not a test taker. So I'm going to show you that today for sure. Okay. So let me just share a couple things with you today. First of all, let me just go to here. when you signed up, you received a free study guide. So if you don't have it right now, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm going to project everything we're talking about today. I'm not going to be able to go through every single question on the practice test today, but there are 10 here. Now we're going to go through a few of them, and I'm going to do a constructed response because those of you taking the 5621 to 5624 all have to do the writing. Now, if you're taking the 5625, that's a new Praxis PLT. There is no constructed response. You're lucky. You don't have to write. But I highly recommend you stick around for the writing portion because it's going to help you think critically about the multiple choice portion. So this is just the free study guide that you got with the for signing up for this webinar. And there are 2 constructed responses here. And again, I recommend you do these even if you're taking the 5625 without writing, because it just helps you to become better at understanding this content. Now, if you're looking for more, this is just a mini study guide. If you're looking for more, I have study guides for the PLT 5621 through 5624. And you can see that they're very robust. They're over 270 pages, okay? And after each content category, there are practice test questions. So let me just show you a little bit about this. So I have the major categories here, and we're going to talk about the major categories in a minute. Then I have the test specifications, and then I fill in all of the information that's really important for each test spec. I make sure everything I do in these books is aligned to the test specification. And then let me not make you dizzy, and let me just go here. And then after each content category, I have 10 practice test questions that are focused just on that content category. So you can see what those types of questions might look like on the exam. And then of course, very detailed answer explanations. These answer explanations are like another chapter in the book. So I highly recommend, even on the free study guide, if you get something correct, I still recommend reading the answer explanation because it's going to give you a little more information. All right. Now I have these particular study guides here for all of the tests except for the 5625. Now here's the thing. The 5625 is the same as the 5621, 22, 23, 24, 25, except the 5625 is every grade level. All right. So what that means is if you are taking the 5625, all you have to do is buy the 5622 and email us, and we will send you the 5624. So when you buy, sorry, let me just get this down. The 5621 is early childhood. That's for people teaching pre-K through 3rd. The 5622 is K6, elementary. 5623 is middle school, 5624 is high school. If you're taking the 5625, which Vanika Brown, looks like you're in my chat, you're taking the 5625, what you do is buy the 5622, send us an email and say, hey, I'm taking the 5625 and I bought the 5622, and we will give you the 5624, which gives you high school. So you get everything at that point from elementary to high school. You'll be fine. It's all the same. I know they're breaking it up by grade level, but really the concepts are all the same. But if you're taking the 5625, just shoot us an email. We will send you the additional book because all the books are pretty much the same. Don't buy multiple books. If you need the 5622, just get that. Don't get all 4 of them, okay? Because everything is very similar and the tests are very, very similar. All right. So I just haven't had time to make a 5625, but what I'm going to be doing for the 5625 is basically just combining the books. So reach out to us. Let us know when you buy the 5622, and we will send you the 5624 for free. If you are just taking the 5624, you don't need anything else. If you're just taking the 5622, you don't need anything else. Just buy the product that you need. Now, let me show you really quick where you can find these products, and then we're going to get into the thing. But I like to show people if they want more help besides just the free, okay? And some of you have already gotten these books. So if you go into our programs here and you go into Praxis PLT, this will take you to everything we offer. So we have study guides, online courses. Of course, we have a free webinar, and we have this blog here that will take you to like very in-depth about the PLT. So let me just show you the different books here so I can kind of elaborate on what I just talked about. If you're taking the early childhood, we have a book and an online course for that. If you're taking grades K6, we have a book and a course. 5-9, book and course. 7-12, book and course. If you're taking the 5625, I recommend buying the 5622 because it overlaps with the 5621 and it overlaps with the, because it's grades K6 and it overlaps with the middle school. And then, so if you're taking the 5625, you get this book, K through 6, and this book, 7 through 12. Don't buy both. Buy one. We'll send you the additional one for free because they're essentially the same book with a few different test questions regarding grade level. Okay. But if you just need the 5622, all you need to do is get this. You don't need to buy all 4 books because you're essentially buying the same thing over and over again. Just get one thing. Now, we also have online courses. Let me show you this really quickly. The online courses come with the study guides. So if you get one of these courses, you're getting everything. You're getting videos, extra practice, and you're getting the study guide, the full study guide. Now, if you are taking the 5625, so you want to buy this one, 5622, let us know. We'll send you the additional book here. The online courses are all pretty much the same, except they have a different book in them, obviously. So the concepts and the videos are pretty much the same. The only difference is you get a different study guide depending on which one you buy. Okay. Now, beyond that, we have the free webinars here. So you're taking the free Praxis PLT webinar. With that comes a free study guide. You can just use the free stuff. It's totally fine. A lot of people just use the free stuff. So it just all depends on what you want. Now, you're going to be getting an offer code for those of you who signed up. So you're going to get 20% off. So you can buy now, later, whatever, you're going to get an offer code for 20% off. Once this webinar is over, you're going to get the replay, all the resources I talk about, the presentation, everything, and an offer code. So if you've already bought the book, great, awesome. So glad you did that. Thank you. Also, if you decide later, hey, I like this online teaching stuff, I want to buy the online course. If you already bought the book, send us an email and we'll send you an offer code and you can get the price of the book off of the course because the course comes with the book. So we don't want you to pay too much. So if you bought the book on Amazon, you can send us a screenshot of your purchase. Please make sure your name is visible so we know it's you. And if you bought from our website, we can look you up, but we can't look you up on Amazon. So if you bought the physical book on Amazon and you later decide, you know what, I want the online course, then you can send us an email. We'll give you an offer code for that. Okay. Now, Yana has just put in the chat, if you're in the webinar, she just put in the chat the offer code there. So if you want to buy, you can use that. You can also wait for the email. So again, you're getting all the free resources today. We're going to go through the presentation and everything. If you like the way I'm teaching online, you'll love the online course. It's full of videos, extra practice, breakdown of everything, constructed response, practice, examples. It'll help you with everything. Or if you're just like, hey, I like the study guide, that's good too. You can do that. All right. So let's talk about this particular exam really quickly. Some of you are in here and you're taking different exams. You might be in Texas, or you might be in Florida, or you might be somewhere that's using a different test, but it's similar to this. I think Texas calls theirs the PPR. Praxis calls theirs the PLT. Pretty much every state has a PLT type exam because they want incoming teachers to understand how to be a teacher. And that's what the PLT is. Now, you'll take the Praxis core, many of you. Some of you don't have to take it, but many of you will take the Praxis core. And then you will also take your subject area, which is like elementary education, middle school math, high school social studies, PE, whatever your content area is. But many of you will also have to take this exam because this governs the overall profession of teaching. And we're going to talk about those content areas in a minute, okay? Now, a lot of people kind of freak out about this because they haven't been teachers before. And this is kind of difficult if you haven't been a teacher before because you might be relating your own experience in learning to this. And sometimes the way we grew up was not the right way. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about good words and bad words so you can narrow your answer choices down and get better at this. And also the book, a lot of people have told me that the PLT book has helped them become better teachers because I outline all the best practices in teaching because that's what's on the exam. And it will help you become a better teacher too on your evaluations and all of that. So keep that in mind. Okay. All right. So a couple of things I want you to remember before we get into this actual presentation. Number one, you should be Googling the test specs and blueprint and looking at that. Now, all of my videos, anything, resources, books, study guides, everything is all aligned to the blueprint. I study the blueprints. I study the test specifications. That's what I was taught to do when the testing companies came in to teach us how to do this. So that is my Bible, the study companions. But I also want you to look at the study companions as well. Now, these are not my documents, so I'm not going to share the document, but I am going to show you where to find it, okay? So really quickly, I just want to show you where to get the PLT study companions. So ETS, as you can see here, is the company that makes Praxis exams. So if you're taking any Praxis test, you are taking it from ETS, okay? Now, when you Google Praxis PLT study companion, and I put the 5622, some people are taking the 5621 or the 5624, the 5625, whichever one you're doing, just put the name in there. And I actually like to do it like this, PLT 5622 study companion, okay? When you do, it will come up here. Now, underneath, you'll see lots of ads. You'll see my study guide here. Here I am. You'll see pictures. You'll see videos, all that. Forget that for now. This is, and you see here it says PDF. This is the study companion. This is going to lay out the standards, the content categories, the test specifications, sample questions, all of that. So that's really important for you to have a look at. Let me just zoom in a little bit there. You want to go to ETS Praxis Principles of Learning Study Companion. And that's going to be the thing that that's going to help you understand the whole aspects of the exam. Okay. Now, beyond that, I'm going to talk to you really quickly about the content categories and all of that. All right. So let me go to my presentation really quickly. And today we're talking about the Praxis PLT 5621, 22, 23, 24, and 25. Again, they all assess pretty much the same skills. If you look at the study companions for all of them, they all have the same exact language. So the skills are the same. We're just talking about different grade levels here. Remember, if you're taking the 5625, this is K through 12. So it's all of these content categories, or all of these grade levels. So again, I recommend if you want to buy our products, buy this one and we'll get you this one for free. But just letting you know that, okay? Now, let's have a look at the content categories for all of the exams. So content category 1 is going to be students as learners. So there's going to be a bunch of questions about students' development, like how do they develop? What kind of learning processes do they go through? How do we engage students? How do we motivate students? Anything. It also, there's a lot of classroom management in here, routines and procedures, things like that. It's all about the students. Increasing student achievement. That's our number one job. All right. So good words around this content category is going to be increasing student achievement, engaging students, doing things that engage student learners. We're going to have anything around good classroom management, routines, procedures, predictability in the classroom. You're also going to have words like explicit, systematic instruction. Explicit instruction is a good thing. We need to be very clear on how we convey our expectations to students. There are going to be some things about student behavior in here. So keeping things positive with student behavior. Anything punitive or negative is not going to be the correct answer. I know a lot of us grew up with timeouts and getting sent to the ISS room if we're not behaving and all of those things. And that may or may not work in your classroom, but on this exam, behavior, things need to be positive, okay? We need to be creating a positive environment for our students. And the research shows that positive behavior interventions and supports does work. When we focus on the positive behaviors and praise positive behaviors, rather than focusing on the negative, it actually does work. I know it's hard to do, but it does work, okay? So students as learners, content category 1. Content category 2, all about the instructional process. So this is going to be lesson planning, using the standards, to make instructional decisions and to plan your lessons, how to convey, again, expectations to your students, direct versus indirect instruction. I have a really good video on that on my YouTube channel, and my colleague Yana is listening to this presentation, so she'll put that in the email for you guys. Direct versus indirect instruction. Cooperative learning, when do we use that? Interactive processes, inquiry, all of that. That's going to be the biggest part. Now, good words when it comes to instructional process is going to be state standards, aligning your lessons to the state standards 100%. If you see that in an answer choice, it's most likely the correct answer. Working backward from the standards, that's also a good one as well. Direct instruction, indirect instruction, depending on what it is. Differentiated instruction, also a good word. You might not see the word differentiated instruction, but anything around that, like meeting the needs of each student or using small group to target students' deficits. That type of differentiated process is very, very important. All right. You might see the word accommodation. Also, anything that has to do with IEPs, following the IEPs, making sure we're accommodating properly for our special education students, that's all going to fall into content category 2 and possibly content category 1. Okay. Now, bad words when it comes to instructional process is going to be anything like anything negative, but also like calling home to tell on students, relying on parents to kind of convey expectations to their students, anything drill and practice, although I do believe drill and practice works on a lot of things. On this particular exam, homework, drill and practice, extra work, those are all things that are on the bad word list, even though a lot of us grew up that way. Copying definitions down from a dictionary, any of those kind of old school practices that may have indeed worked for you are not considered best practices for this exam. So stay away from that and focus on the good words. Now, I'm going to show you this in context. I'm going to do practice test questions so I can show you the good and bad words. I'm just giving you an overview right now. The third one is assessment. Huge when it comes to teaching. We are using assessment to collect quantitative and qualitative data, and we're using that data to make instructional decisions. Assessment is so important. So in my books, I have a whole chart on all the different assessments: criterion reference, norm reference, formative, summative, portfolios, performance-based, inquiry-based, all of that. And I have a whole section on that and practice test questions and everything. So really hone in on assessment. The biggest thing about assessment and the good words around this is using data to make instructional decisions. That's why we assess. And that was taught to me a long time ago when I was in curriculum as well. A person said, the only reason to give your students a test is to make instructional decisions. Otherwise, it's just grades in a grade book. What's the point of putting a grade in a grade book? I know parents like to see a grade and kids like to see their grade, but what use is it? It's useless unless you're using the information from that assessment to make instructional decisions, maybe to move on to more complicated tasks. Maybe the students got it. Now you want to bump up the rigor. Or maybe half your kids did not get it. And you go, oh, I must not have covered that properly. Let me go back and reteach. Let me go back and support. Let me break off this group of students and work on interventions here because they struggled with this. And let me move these students ahead. There's that differentiated instruction again. So be sure you hone in on assessment and really read that part of the book. And I have tons of videos on assessment on my YouTube channel, and we will link that up in the email that goes out at the end of this as well. Number 4 is professional development and leadership and community. This is all about your professional growth, growing as a teacher, learning new things, not getting stale, not using the same lesson plan for 25 years. We all have that veteran teacher in the school, and God bless her or him, who's been taking out the same lesson plan for 10, 15 years. And it may or may not work. I'm not dogging it. Like, that's okay. But We want to adapt. We want to grow. We want to learn the new trends. We want to see what the research says. All right. So good words when it comes to this content category is going to be research based, right? Whatever strategies we're using, we want to make sure we've looked over the research. Action research, which has to do with working with our colleagues in our professional learning communities, PLCs, to grow and analyze data and adapt our lessons and work together as a collaborative group. That's really important. Leadership. Now, of course, many of you might become leaders, assistant principals. I was an assistant principal as well. It was a great job. I loved it. But it's not just leadership in terms of like becoming a principal. It's also about becoming a leader within your group, maybe helping other teachers, right? Being a mentor to new teachers, going out into the community and providing leadership in the community, communicating with parents in their home language. Maybe you don't speak the parents' home language, but you can translate your flyers and your website and your communication with parents in order so that all parents can understand what's going on. Leadership is not just being paid more or being the boss. It's also about guiding your students, guiding other professionals, working together in your PLCs to make the school a better place and to increase student achievement. That's the ultimate good word on this exam, increasing student achievement. Now, if you're taking the 5621 through the 5624, you're going to have these constructed responses. And there are 4 of them, and they are going to pull from any one of these 4 content categories. Now, you might get 2 from students as learners and 2 from instructional processes. And you might not get 1 on assessment or professional development. You could get 1 from student as learners, 1 from instructional processes, 1 from assessment, and 1 from content category 4, professional development, leadership, and community. I don't know which ones you're going to get. I have no idea what test you're going to get. I have no idea what questions you're going to get. That's why it's so important to get to know the study guide and understand these content categories and what happens within them. Because if you just do practice test questions over and over again, number 1, you're not getting the content. And number 2, you're not going to be prepared for this portion. And this is worth 25% of your overall grade. Okay. Now I have another video on my YouTube channel, how to read your score report, which I'll link up in the email. This is, I go through how to read your score report when it comes to the constructed response. A lot of people say, well, this was I think it was out of 16. Why is it out of 16 when there's four questions there? Because you get 2 graders on each constructed response, and each of them are giving you a score. So that's why it's out of 16. You're getting 2 scores for question number 1, 2 scores for question number 2, 2 scores for question number 3, and 2 scores for question number 4. That's 16. Okay. So I talk a little bit more about that when we talk about interpreting your score report. We'll link that up. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about the actual question so I can show you the good words, bad words, and all of that. Let's talk about this in context. Okay. So this is number 1 in the free study guide. Now, when it comes to the PLT, I highly recommend reading the answer choices first. Work backward. I always talk about that. Think like a test maker, not a test taker. Let's go ahead and do that here. Fill out a worksheet by labeling parts of a cell. Worksheet. Typically the wrong answer. I'm getting rid of A right away. Build a model of a cell and label it. Okay. Building a model of a cell is cool. We'll see. I'll leave it. C, write a comic strip about a cell and all the adventures it encounters. Okay. Write a comic strip. Build a model, write a comic strip. Okay. B and C look good. D, draw a picture of the cell and label its parts. All right. Notice here I have label, label, label. All the same skills. This is me thinking like a test maker, not a test taker. Labeling is identifying. It's a low-level skill. In the book, you will see that I have a Bloom's taxonomy. I'm going to be really bad at drawing here. I have a Bloom's taxonomy, and at the bottom of the Bloom's taxonomy is identify. Identify is a low-level skill, and that's what labeling is. Whether it's a worksheet, whether you might have built a model of a cell, but all you're doing is labeling it. That's still the same skill. And drawing a picture, that's great, but you're labeling it. Labeling is at the bottom of the Bloom's taxonomy. Where do we want students to be? Up here. Create, apply, evaluate, analyze. So right now, because we have label, these are all the same. Looks like C is standing out to me. Let me read the question now just to make sure. Students in a 5th grade class are learning about the parts and functions of cells. Which of the following activities would be most effective in supporting creative and critical thinking? Now, if you're new to teaching, you might look at all these answer choices and go, but all of these are creative. They are not all critical thinking, and they're not all that creative. Filling out a worksheet is not creative, neither creative nor critical thinking. A is out. If you see the term worksheet, cross it off. It's probably not the correct answer. Do we use worksheets? Yes. I am not dogging worksheets either. I'm talking about this exam. In a perfect world, we would never use a worksheet, but of course we use worksheets in real life. But on this test, bad word. Building a model of a cell, you might say, well, that's creative. That's critical thinking. It's not critical thinking if we're labeling it. Write a comic strip, certainly creative, about a cell and all the adventures it encounters. Now you have to think critically about the functions of the cell, what's going on with the cell. You really have to understand it and apply that critical thinking. C does that. D, draw a picture. Okay, that's creative, but labeling its parts, not critical thinking. So notice, focus on the verbs in the answer choices, and that will bring you to the Bloom's taxonomy piece, and you want to be up here. We want to push kids up that Bloom's taxonomy. And again, I go through Bloom's taxonomy in the online course in depth, and it's all throughout the book. So you'll learn a lot about that. And I have some videos on YouTube about that as well. Okay. All right, let's go with number 2, answer choices. First, consult his peer teacher about the lesson. All right, I like peer teacher. That's good. B, reference the state-adopted standards for grade 9 bio. Yeah, I like B because it has the term state-adopted standards. If you see that in an answer choice, zero in on it. It's most likely the right answer. Let's keep going. C, determine what assessments he will need to administer. Okay, I like that too. Assessment is a good word on this exam. D, go online and see what other teachers are doing in their classrooms. Now, do we go on Instagram and TikTok and see what other teachers are doing? Yes, I do too. I love Teacher Talk. I'm on there all the time watching teachers. They have so many amazing ideas. But remember, we're talking about the principles of learning and teaching, and it's a much more structured test regarding state standards, state expectations. So I'm not going to circle D. Right now, B is looking like it's my best answer. Let's go to the question. Mr. Rodriguez is a new 9th grade biology teacher. He is starting to plan a lesson on ecosystems. What would be his first step? Couple of things here. First step. First step is to reference the state adopted standards. In my book, I go through backward design. And a lot of times teachers will start with the lesson. I want to do this lesson. I found this lesson on Pinterest and I really like it. I want to do this lesson. And we forget about the standards. And I didn't even know what a standard was, by the way, until like halfway through my first year of teaching. Nobody told me anything about the standards. I was like, my assistant principal walked in and said, "You're teaching the standards, right?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, totally teaching the standards." I ran to my peer teacher and I'm like, "What are the standards?" And she showed me. I had no idea. And maybe some of you don't even know. You got to reference those state adopted standards. And I have lots of videos on that as well, how to build objectives using the standards and all of that. We'll link that up as well. Now, consult the peer teacher. This is called the distractor. This is the one that's almost the correct answer, because what they did to you here, they're doing you dirty here. They say new. And you think new, he's new. Well, he's definitely going to have a peer teacher, right? So A would be the distractor. You might go for that. But the state adopted standards are the thing this teacher needs to consult first. Reading those standards is number 1. Now, C is also good. Go to the assessments. That's also a good answer choice, but it's not the first step. There's always something in the question that's going to lead you to the right answer. And this is another one of those questions where you might say, "Oh my gosh, everything in the answer choices looks like it's the right answer." but there is always one correct answer unless it asks you to choose all that apply. And there's going to be clues here. First step, planning a lesson. All that has to do with the standards. All right, let's go with number 3. Now, if I go to the answer choices, I can't do much because they're just one word answers, okay? So I know I have to pick one of these. Let's keep moving backwards. Let's read the bullets first. Students will identify parts of a sentence, subject and predicate. Students will understand the difference between fragments and complete sentences. Okay, so the 3rd grade teacher writes this on the board. These are examples of, okay, these are not standards. Standards are big overarching goals, okay? And they're going to have numbers and they're going to have all these different ways to indicate that they're standards. They're larger goals. These are objectives. Notice they have the skills, identify, understand, okay? These, and she's writing them on her board for a lesson. Objectives are the small skills or the incremental skills students achieve after a lesson is over. So students will identify parts of a sentence. Students will understand. We're actually probably at the beginning portion of this particular lesson because we're talking about low-level skills, identify and understand. And when we start a lesson, we're going to start at the bottom of that Bloom's taxonomy, right? Because we're just showing students what's going on. So it's okay that we start here, but eventually we want to move up to the critical thinking. But the term identify and understand, those all come from skills in objectives, and this is on the lower end. Now, they're not rules. These are not rules, and these are not rubrics. Rubrics are a way to convey expectations when students do a project or a writing assignment. That's what's not happening here. You may be tempted to choose A, but in this case, we're talking about the skills students need at the end of a lesson. And so objectives is going to be a better answer here. Standards typically have numbers in front of them indicating the grade level, the strand, the skill, and all of that. You could argue that these could possibly be standards, but usually standards are much more in-depth and cover more ground than just this. You can tell that this is going to be a lesson on sentences. You can see subject and predicate and understanding the difference between fragments and complete sentences. This is going to be about a lesson. And so these are objectives. All right, number 4, let's have a look at the answer choices. Again, one word answers, can't do much. Reciprocal teaching, cooperative learning, modeling, writing workshop. And then let's continue to work backwards. The teacher is using which technique? Don't know. A teacher has projected an essay in the front of the class. The students watch, keyword, as she goes through the essay, deleting fragments and revising sentences. The teacher is using what technique? This is modeling. Modeling is done through direct instruction. Direct instruction is when the teacher is in the front of the room giving the information, giving the lesson. Students are watching, and this is the perfect time to demonstrate. And so in this case, this is probably an English teacher. She is modeling how to fix fragments and revise sentences. She's projecting it in front of the class, right? Let's go over these other ones so you know what these are. Reciprocal teaching. Reciprocal teaching is when the teacher gives over the task of teaching to the students. So the students have a really good grasp of the content and what's going on. And now they might prepare a lesson. They might teach their group. They might stand in the front of the room and do a lesson on, parts of a cell or something like that. It's a way to engage students. And it's also a way to tap into their higher order thinking skills. Because if you can teach a lesson, you really know the material. And that's what reciprocal teaching is. The teacher and the student switch roles. The student becomes the teacher and the teacher watches the student. Cooperative learning is just a fancy word for group work, but on this exam, cooperative learning is all about structure. You don't just say, kids, get into groups. That's a recipe for disaster. You need to make sure perhaps you are picking the groups to begin with. Everybody in the group has a job. You're walking around the room when students are in groups and kind of getting all in their business and asking them what they're doing. If you're sitting at your desk while they're in cooperative groups, they're not going to do it. They're going to goof off. If you're walking around and being all in their business and looking at what they're doing, they'll be working. So cooperative learning does not mean I get to sit at my desk and put grades in the grade book. It means I got to walk around and facilitate. And then writing workshop is a type of cooperative learning. So if I were thinking like a test maker, I could right away cross those two off, because a writing workshop and cooperative learning are essentially the same thing. And we can only have one right answer in this particular question. Now, writing workshop is more specific. It has to do with exchanging your writing, giving feedback on writing. Students are working in groups and kind of working on different things regarding their essays or the writing process. That's what a writing workshop is. But in this case, the teacher is projecting an essay, demonstrating. That is modeling, and modeling is a good word on this exam. Students need explicit instruction, and with that is modeling. All right, let's have a look at number 8 in the study guide. This has got some nice long answer choices. Let's work backward. A, plan, teach, and practice daily routines and procedures for transitions and classroom activities. Oh, I love it. It's got all the good words. And all of these words are in the test specifications. Remember, I told you to download that study companion because it is going to show you the good words. The words in that study companion are the good words. And it talks extensively about practicing daily routines. This is a classroom management strategy. Oh my God, there's going to be so many videos in this email. Yana's probably like, oh my God. I did a webinar on how to start your school year off with success. And it is all about classroom management and implementing practice, routines, and procedures. So important. If you can do this in your life, your teaching job is going to be so much easier. If you don't have routines and procedures in your classroom, your life as a teacher is going to be chaotic and awful. So really important to do that. And I have lots of videos on that. B, send home reminders to parents about classroom expectations. No, bad answer. Do we do that? Yes, of course. We send home, hey, just a reminder, students need to come to school with their binders. Students need to have pencils. Students need to act properly. But it's not the parents' job to do it. And I understand parents need to instill, behaviors in their students and stuff like that. But on this test, we have to manage the classroom ourselves. Okay. Do we call home in real life? Absolutely. On this test, don't choose it as an answer. C, assign homework right away. Boom, homework is out. Bad word on the exam. D, have students sign behavior contracts. Okay, you might like this one, and behavior contracts can work. But you know what works better? Practice routines and procedures, because students then know your expectations and they do the same thing over and over again and they know how to act. And when they start to act up again, we go back and practice those daily routines and procedures. So D is out. A is the best answer. Let's read the question. According to research, the most effective way to maximize instructional time. If you want to make sure you're teaching most of the time and not managing misbehavior, A is the way to go, 100%. All right. And the last, now we're on the constructed response. Let me go back in here and just see if you guys have any questions. Okay, so Mary's been in the school system for 25 years. Wow, Mary, thank you for your service. That's a long time. And you'll be doing the special ed later. Okay, awesome, Mary. I just did a special education webinar. So you can go to that webinars page on our website and you'll see that. I just did one for that. Looks like everybody is okay. Some people from New York, you're taking a different test, but this'll still help you. I've been out of the classroom since 2014. I forget a lot of the terminology. Rhonda, it's true. There's a lot of terminology in teaching and a lot of acronyms. If you can, get the study guide and it'll go through all of that for you. But really the buzzwords you want to be on the lookout for is differentiation, state adopted standards, using data to make instructional decisions, quantitative and qualitative data. We want to be observing students. That's good data, right? Qualitative and also quantitative test scores, things like that. Did we go over question 7? No, what we did was I skipped around a little bit. I only did 5 questions from the study guide because I need to be under an hour and I'm going to be on time. But do you have a question on number 7, Alex? Let me go to number 7. I'll do that one for you. Alex, hang on. Let me share my screen here. I skipped around on the study guide. I didn't do all of them in the study guide. Oop, this is the wrong one. Let's go here. We need to go into the free one. Okay, number 7. Let me zoom in on that one. All right. Alex is asking about this one on the free study guide. Okay. I can see why these are kind of similar here. Okay. So the answer choices are problem-based, program-based, inquiry-based, or performance-based. Now, performance-based is a good word. This is a type of assessment where a student has to perform. It could be that they give a presentation in the front of the room, but it could also be like an essay. If a student is writing an essay, they are performing something. All right. So let's have a look at the question because I can't really do much here. I can't eliminate anything. After a unit on the Civil War, the teacher wants to measure students' skills mastery based on the state standards for their grade level. She allows the student to pick from 3 assessments: conduct a presentation, write a speech, or design a brochure. The teacher is using what type of method? This is performance-based. Okay. All of these are a performance: a presentation, writing a speech, and designing a brochure. They're all a performance. Okay. This is going to require the student to use higher order thinking skills. This is more than just bubbling in on a multiple choice test. And it is also going to give the teacher a lot of good data because you can really measure a lot when it comes to this. Now, problem-based is when you give students a problem and they solve it. And a lot of times this works with cooperative learning. You might give students a really complex problem in math or science or anything, and they have to work together to solve that problem. That kind of goes along with inquiry-based as well. Inquiry-based is when students are, asking questions, trying to figure something out. You may give them like a really difficult science situation and they got to kind of do a little bit of a lab and they got to figure it out. It takes a lot of planning and a lot of, it's hard to be a teacher in an inquiry-based classroom. You got to really work at it, but the results, it yields like amazing results. So problem-based and inquiry-based are related here. And program-based is kind of a nonsense one, although you could argue that a program-based assessment aligns with a particular program. But in this case, they are doing a presentation, writing a speech. They are performing something. So this is a performance-based assessment. All right. All right. So I don't have time to go through every single one on the free study guide. But again, read those answer explanations and definitely check out my YouTube channel and something like that. All right, so now let's go through the constructed response. I want to talk to you guys about some strategies you can use for the constructed response. And it looks like Jessica just texted in the chat. She had a hard time with the constructed response. So let me show you how to do that, okay? So let's go over to my presentation one more time. Okay. Oh, you know what? Let's go here first. Let me read the question. We are going to do the second constructed response. Let me zoom out. So this one is all about high school. Okay. Now it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter which one you get. You could get an elementary, you can get a pre-K, you can get a middle, you can get a high school. It doesn't matter. What matters is how you approach it. Now remember, you have to have a good understanding of the concepts in the study guide in order to have the content knowledge to do well on this. So again, if you're just doing practice tests over and over again and you're not actually reading the book or watching the videos, you're going to have a hard time because these constructed responses, as you can see, are pretty in-depth. Now, first strategy, thinking like a test maker. I want you to work backwards on the constructed response as well. You've got all this information. Look at this. You've got the scenario. You've got all the lesson plans. Oh my gosh. You've got all this stuff. Then you've got a walkthrough rubric. Then you have observational notes. And then after that, you have the questions, what you're being asked to do. I say go straight to the task. It might say question number 1. It might say task number 1. Just depends on which test you get. And again, I don't know which one you're going to get. So right away, what I want you to do is go here. Boom. Identify 2 modifications Mr. Sumner can make to his lesson to increase his effectiveness in category 2, and then explain how each modification can help improve on meeting the teaching skills. Typically, these questions do this. They'll ask you to identify 2 or implement 2 or do 2 of something. And then the second bullet will be, tell me why it's important. Tell me why it helps. Tell me why it's effective. Okay. Okay, so now I know what I'm being asked to do. I need to come up with 2 modifications. How can I change? How can Mr. Sumner change in order to meet category 2 rubric? All right, in the rubric, this is what category 2 says. the teacher delivers instruction aligned to a rigorous learning objective. Okay, that's what we want. So we need to modify his lesson plan in order for him to meet that. Well, let's have a look at his lesson plan. And notice I'm jumping all around here. I'm not starting from the top. I'm just jumping around because it's going to make me understand this better. If I start here and read this, and then read the lesson plan, and then read the walkthrough, and then read the observation notes, and then I go here and read these two things I'm supposed to do, I'm going to have to go back and reread this whole thing again. So work backward, okay? So let's start with question 1. Question 1 is going to be one paragraph, because notice I have 2 questions here. I have question 1 and question 2. So for this particular constructed response, I'm going to have 2 paragraphs, okay? So my first paragraph is going to be identify 2 modifications. All right. And the modifications need to improve this category here. Teacher delivers instruction aligned to a rigorous learning objective. All right. So he only got a 1 in this area. He must be lacking here. So let's have a look at the lesson plans. Week 1, read chapter 4, lesson 1, and complete chapter questions. Okay, week 2, read chapter 4, lesson 2, and complete chapter questions. Okay, week 3, read chapter 4, lesson 3, and complete chapter questions. Okay, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of rigorous learning here. And I don't even see an objective. I don't see the terms, the student will identify important aspects of blah, blah, blah. The student will evaluate yada, yada, yada. I don't see any of that happening here. All right, then we got a test. Then we got week 5, read chapter 5, lesson 1, and answer chapter questions. Okay, this is not good. This is the same old, and I can tell right away his students are going to be bored and not challenged, and there's nothing rigorous about this. The chapter questions might be somewhat rigorous, but just having them read and answer questions, this is not good. Okay, let's look at weekly activities. Monday, 40-minute movie. He must be a social studies teacher. Yes, he is a social studies teacher. No offense to my social studies teachers, but when I was an assistant principal and I did walkthroughs, there were a lot of movies. 40 minutes, that's too long. 10-minute movie, and then a discussion, maybe 10 more minutes, and then an interactive activity. Not 40 minutes, all class period, dark room, movie showing, note-taking. That's, I'm going to say it, that's lazy. That's not teaching, all right? Tuesday, read textbook and complete practice questions. Wednesday, group work. Okay. What does that mean, group work? What are they doing in the group work? What engagement is happening? Not, if I'm the AP and I'm looking at this, I'm not happy. Okay. Thursday, makeup day. Now, I always had a makeup day with my kids when I was a teacher. Don't put that in your lesson plan, because that says to the administration, free day for me. Students are making up work. I'm not teaching. And do we all need a makeup day? Yes. Does your principal know that? Yes. Don't put it in writing on a lesson plan. Say, differentiation, meeting the students where they are, targeted interventions, because makeup day means somebody's missing something. So we're going to fill those gaps. Word it differently, not finish up missing assignments. Okay. We're differentiating based on students' needs. Friday, debate. Okay. That's interactive, but what are we going to learn during the debate? Students will apply their knowledge of the Civil War to debate with one another on the following topics. Students will use evidence-based discussion in order to interact with their classmates. This is not enough, all right? So now I have an understanding of why he's scoring so low. Look here, he's got a good grasp on the content. He's probably got a really good, most social studies teachers I know, they know a lot about history. It's their passion. Okay. So he's scoring pretty high there, but the instruction is a 1 lacking. And pedagogical skills, that means teaching, he's only at a 2. And I can see why. In a 2, if I were doing this, a 2 is generous here. This is not good. Okay, so let's have a look. Identify 2 modifications Mr. Sumner can make. So right away, let me go to my thing here. I wrote down. So I might have my scratch paper out while I'm reading this, and I'm going to jot down 2 methods, okay? So the 2 methods I'm going to use for my first question is use the standards and data to plan lessons. because all he has in his lesson plan is like, read the chapter, answer the question, read the chapter. That's not using the standards to plan. There's no words in there about the skills the students are get. And why is this? This goes to the second bullet. Why is this important? Well, it'll meet the needs of each student and keeps the students on track with state learning goals. If you're not using the standards, you're setting your students up for failure because they have to take a state test at the end of the year in social studies. And so if you're just following the textbook, you might get lucky because the textbook follows the state standards in a lot of ways, but it doesn't always. We have to make sure we're doing that. And the second thing he can do is continually refer to the objectives and standards in the lesson. This is going to help bump up that category that he scored low in. This allows students to determine if they've met an objective, and it's a way to collect more data to see if students are meeting it. Because notice, let me go back to this. Teacher delivers instruction aligned to rigorous learning objectives. We need to make sure that we are referencing that, okay? So now let me show you what that's going to look like. So I'm going to answer these 2 bullets in one paragraph, all right? Let's go back. Here it is. And I get right into it. I don't need an intro and all this fluff. Get into it. Don't take a long time, all right? The first approach Mr. Sumner can take to improve in content category 2, notice I reference what they're asking me to do, is to plan lessons using learning objectives aligned with the standards. Good words again, right? I talked to you about those good words in the multiple choice. Use them in your writing. For example, rather than planning his lessons for the entire semester, that must have been in the, that is in the narrative at the top. Mr. Sumner can plan incrementally, collect data to drive instructional decisions. Good words again, and design rigorous lesson objectives that correspond with academic standards. Good word, good word, good word, good word all throughout. And it's a specific example. I say plan lessons using learning objectives. Then I get more in depth. I get specific. You got to use some specific details. Now I'm going to tell you why this goes with bullet number 2. I'm going to tell you why this is effective. This will ensure he meets the needs of all students while pushing students towards skills mastery. All right, so there's my first approach and why it's going to help. Now let's go to my second approach. The second thing Mr. Sumner can do is communicate those objectives throughout the lesson. For example, as students engage in the lesson, Mr. Sumner can ask, have we met this objective? Referring back to the objective helps, and here we go, this is the second part. Why is it going to help? Referring back to the objectives helps connect activities to the classroom to student learning targets. It is also a way to collect data to make further instructional decisions. So this is one paragraph here, and I met all of those tasks. I chose 2 modifications. The first one is to plan lessons using learning objectives. The second one is to refer back to those objectives when teaching. And then the second bullet was tell me why it's important. Well, I did that here. This will ensure he meets the needs of all students, and the second one, referring back to the objectives, helps connect activities to the classroom and a way to collect data. Check, check, check all over. Notice I worked backwards. I zeroed in on the things that were important, and I got right into talking about it. The first approach, and then I say the second approach. So the grader knows I have 2 things in here. I've answered the question. You could even break this up into 2 paragraphs if you wanted to. You could make this, this one paragraph here. Oh my God, it's getting really messy. Sorry, guys. This one here, and then you could start number 2 here. You could do it any way you want. Just make sure you answer the question. All right, let's go to the second question here. Now, this is all one constructed response, mind you. This is just one constructed response. It happens to have 2 questions. It may be that this is 2 separate. It just depends on how they set it up. Question 2. In the observation feedback, the principal mentions that the student engagement is low. Let's have a look at the observational notes. Students are compliant and have an understanding of what is expected. However, student engagement is low. We can tell right away as APs, especially if we have a lot of instructional leadership behind us, whether students are just compliant or whether they are engaged. Compliance is good. They're not acting up. They're not acting like fools and all of that, but it's not engagement. We want students engaged, okay? So, and that there is no learning objective driving instruction. Identify 2 changes this teacher can do to address this feedback. For each change, identify how it might improve. Same thing. We're identifying 2 things and why it's important. All right, let's go to my notes really quickly. 2 things I decided: to engage students. Remember, during direct instruction, use essential questions. Question the students. That's going to engage them, keeps them engaged, gets them thinking more critically. Notice I'm giving you what I'm going to do and why it's important, satisfying both bullets. The second thing, use cooperative learning to increase, here's the good word, critical thinking. Increases engagement, taps into higher order thinking skills. All right, easy peasy. Let's have a look at what it looks like in a paragraph. Mr. Sumner's class focuses mainly on finishing textbook tasks and busy work. That's a bad thing. Mr. Sumner can incorporate questioning techniques during direct instruction to increase student engagement. All right, I've got my first one. Then I have this term, for example, good word, letting my grader know. I'm going to get more specific. During direct instruction, Mr. Sumner can ask essential questions to get students thinking more critically about the material rather than just finishing bookwork. This will increase engagement. Okay, now I'm telling you why it's important. This will increase engagement and understanding of the material. Second tactic, another tactic Mr. Sumner can use to increase student engagement is cooperative learning. That was my second one. He can present students with rigorous, good word material and encourage them to work together to use their higher order thinking skills, more good words. Now I'm going to tell you why it's important. This will also increase student engagement and critical thinking, an essential part of a rigorous curriculum. All right. It's not I could have made this a lot better. I could have chosen like much more nuanced things, but you know what? I don't have time to show off all of my, I have a doctorate in educational leadership. This could have been a little bit more in depth. I don't have time for that. I need to complete the task, satisfy both bullets, and move on to the next thing because I don't have much time, okay? So using those good words, making sure we hit the tasks, satisfying both bullets, letting the grader know this is the first thing, this is the second thing, using words like, for example, to let the grader know or to signal that we are going to get more specific, all of that is going to help you gain those points on the constructed response, all right? Okay, let me stop sharing here and go into my questions. So that concludes everything. Now remember, if you're struggling with the constructed response, I would go back and reread the study guide because all of that information is going to help you and apply what you read to the constructed response, all right? You might also want to consider the online course. If you can, if not, no worries, go back to the book. You could also piece together a lot of the stuff on my YouTube channel. I have a lot of videos that talk about this type of thing, okay? All right. People are asking, do you have an updated version from December 2023? No, it's the same course. We update periodically, but the PLT is working just fine. And we don't update every single year. It's not necessary because the test hasn't really changed. All right. So people are saying it's helpful. I'm really enjoying this, but I have to go. That's okay. Watch the replay, Peggy. No problem. All right. So I'm only 2 minutes over. This is good. All right. Let me show you a couple more places where you can get some free resources. Okay. Let me just share screen here. First of all, of course, on my webinars page here, I have webinars not next week. I'm taking next weekend off. I take the last Saturday of the month off from webinars. Otherwise, I'm always doing webinars. But I've got Praxis Core coming up. And so you can register for that on the free webinars page. We'll send you the link to get to the page. Notice I did special education last week. I've done elementary ed, teaching reading. I've got a brand new book for this, got a brand new book for special ed, early childhood. I do them all. And then down here, I have start your school year off with success. I know we're getting towards the end of the year, but there's a lot of really good things here. The 5006-7811 ESOL. And then I go and I do them again. Here's a how to lesson plan. These are all good webinars. So check out this free webinar tab. If you want our programs, you can go to our programs PLT. This will take you to everything we offer for the PLT. Don't forget the offer code for that. And then of course, online courses, Praxis PLT. You can get everything there. Now, let me show you one more thing in study guides PLT. Let's just go here. Okay, so let's say you get the study guide And, but you want a physical study guide. Some of you get the digital download. That's great. Don't print it. These are meant for digital viewing. Okay. With a PDF, a lot of people like to read their stuff on their iPad. That's what this is for. If you want a physical copy, go over to Amazon, click this button here, and it'll take you to Amazon, and you can see we've got lots of 5-star ratings. This is where the physical copy is gained. Don't print it out with your printer and all your ink and like waste your ink. That's not what the digital books are for. Now, for this, we cannot offer discounts because it's through Amazon Publishing. So there's no discount code on the Amazon book, but there are discount codes here. So if you want it from our website, you can grab it here. Now, again, if you've already purchased the book and you want the online course, send us an email with that information, and we'll send you an offer code to take that money off of the course so you can get that. Now, beyond that, I have my YouTube channel. Here is where I have tons and tons of information for you to look through. So many ways in which you can gain more understanding of teaching and also becoming a better teacher and also becoming a better test taker. So there's a lot going on there. Of course, I'm loving TikTok lately. I'm doing a lot of short videos on TikTok. Just did one on learning objectives. Let's see, writing your learning targets on the board. I do math on here, how to write an essay. There's all kinds of stuff here. If you like the short videos, follow me on TikTok. Of course, I'm also on Instagram as well. We share pretty much everything everywhere. And then obviously our Facebook page and all of that has a lot. Okay. All right. So that concludes our PLT webinar. I'm so glad you guys joined me. Remember, next week, I'm taking that weekend off, but coming back on March 2nd for Praxis Core. So if you need to take the Praxis Core, we'll be going over all 3 areas: math, reading, and writing, which includes the essay. I hope you guys enjoyed today's PLT webinar. I really appreciate all of you for staying with me on a Saturday. I know you would much rather be like hanging out by the pool. Well, I guess you can't if you're in New Jersey, but hanging out, relaxing with your coffee by the fire and not trying to figure out how to pass a certification exam. But I'm so glad you are with me here today. So I am thrilled that you guys are becoming teachers. Let us know if we can help you in any way at info@kathleenjasper.com.